5 minutes really isn't long enough to fit in a whole week. Then again, sometimes 7 days isn't either. This is the story of two friends, Cooper and Lawson. That's me. Going on a road trip with no schedule, no budget, and nowhere to stay. We didn't leave looking for anything, but what we found was a huge state full of timeless countryside, modern skylines, and miles of highway. Our story began with a drive to a place I'd never been, Austin, the state's capital. We drove about 4 hours to Austin. 183 took us through some awesome little towns and open country. After enduring the beginnings of South by Southwest traffic, we arrived at Austin and parked under 35. As soon as we parked, we saw a homeless man take off his pants in broad daylight. We had arrived. Not really knowing what to expect, we headed downtown. That night, we got some stuffed avocados with friends and started looking for a place to stay. We ended up finding a couch and a floor at the apartment of one of Cooper's sister's old sorority sisters. As fate would have it, the next day was an annual kite festival. The day moved slowly. We just sat around all day lying in the grass and watching kites and people pass by. It was really unlike anything I'd ever seen. These shots can't really do it justice. After another night's stay in the vacant apartment, we went out on the road again, heading east. Highway 71 was amazing. It was miles and miles of road, lined with rotting wood posts and barbed wire fences that had probably been there for decades. We ended up deciding to cut south to Shiner because we'd heard rumors of its amazing cleanliness, but apparently they brew some kind of beverage there too. Aside from that aforementioned brewery though, Shiner didn't have much holding us there, so we decided to keep driving south and see if we could reach the coast by nightfall. We did. Arriving at Corpus Christi gave us a real sense of accomplishment. We had driven all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. The reality of the situation, however, was much less romantic. We couldn't find a safe-looking place to sleep in our car. Walking around in the night of an unfamiliar city was disconcerting, and it kinda smelled bad. We decided to go camping that night and of course got rained on. The next morning we headed to the beach. Despite the allures of spending another night in a moist tent, we decided we would head to a place where we knew someone. Historic San Antonio. My girlfriend's dad let us crash on some extra beds that night, and in the morning we decided to head to one of the most relaxing towns I've ever been to, Fredericksburg. The shops in Fredericksburg looked like something out of a 50s sitcom. The stores were all family owned, and the products were things that are just as useful now as they were at the end of World War II. While in Fredericksburg, we realized everyone was wearing green. Even though we loved exploring, the only place we wanted to be on St. Patrick's Day was a place we had already been. Austin. South by Southwest traffic was now in full force, but it was worth it to be back on familiar streets. Most of all, 6th Street. The music portion of the festival had begun, and the notorious road was buzzing with activity. It was definitely a night to remember. The next day was downright tranquil by comparison. The new day brought happy chance encounters, though, bumping us into friends from high school and acquaintances turned friends from Abilene, who I'd never hung out with before. We hit up every free show we could find, walking miles between venues, every artist being worth the trip. The last night of our trip was refreshing. Being among friends in a city bursting with music was a sublime mountain peak before our reluctant descent home. Our trip was incredible. We spent a total of over 1,000 miles and 18 hours driving, explored places we'd never been to, and amazingly had a place to stay every night. The really humbling part, though, was that we felt as if the whole thing was bigger than us. Like these sights and these experiences had happened to us, but that it could happen to anybody willing to go find them. For a week, we had done more than just reside in Texas. We lived there.